I would totally curse a painting so that I could remain like this forever.
Just again, it took a water glaze and you were mine. You made me love it and begin again. You made me love it and begin again. You made me love it and begin again.
Hello, sinners. My name is Alice Sen, and welcome to Alice's Shelf, Looks, and Books. Let's get this going. So, in the story, we have Dorian Gray, who is this very handsome young guy, and we also have Basil, who is a painter. And Basil is used to painting Dorian, but he usually paints Dorian like a symbol from the Greek mythology, or like something that's just not human because he's so handsome. And then eventually Basil paints this picture of Dorian that is actually very real, that is just Dorian. But he doesn't want to give it to anyone, he doesn't want it exposed because he says that it's way too personal. It reveals his feelings for Dorian. And those feelings are usually presented as inspiration, as Dorian is his muse. And let's remember that when Oscar Wilde published this, homosexuality was still a crime in England. He even went to jail for it. And his book got banned. It was a whole thing. But anyway, Basil has his feelings for Dorian, and he says that this portrait is way too personal and that it shouldn't be exposed. On the other hand, we have this character, Lord Henry, who says that this picture is Basil's masterpiece and that everyone should see it. However, Lord Henry has a conversation with Dorian, and in that conversation, he says that the picture will forever expose Dorian's beauty and youth because as everybody grows old and loses their beauty, but that picture will forever show Dorian the handsomest of men that he is now. And Dorian goes kind of crazy over it. So Dorian wishes for everything that's bad, age and wrinkles and every terrible thing that would happen to his body to happen to the picture instead. And he decides that he will be the one to keep the picture. And this is a moment in which there is kind of a pact. We never know how exactly this happens, but from this moment on, everything that's bad that's going to happen to Dorian happens to the picture instead. And at this moment, I want to bring out two quotes that I absolutely love. Firstly, we have Dorian saying, "I am less to you than your ivory Hermes or your silver fawn. You will like them always. How long will you like me? Till I have my first wrinkle, I suppose." So we already have this idea of admiration connected to beauty and youth. So Dorian's really insecure about the fact that whether he will or not continue to be praised once he loses that. And the second quote is that right after Lord Henry points out Dorian's beauty to, well, Dorian, it comes to him like a realization. The sense of his beauty came to him like a revelation. He had never felt it before. So it's something that's always been there, but it's Lord Henry's comment, and this is going to be very important because the influence Lord Henry has on Dorian is a very important motif throughout the story. The knowledge of his own beauty comes from this comment. And talking about Lord Henry's influence on Dorian, Lord Henry lives under this idea of new hedonism. And that leads Dorian to live a life that's based on a pursuit of pleasure. And that derives especially from a yellow book that Lord Henry gives him. Eventually, and this is one of my favorite parts in the whole novel, Dorian meets this actress called Sybil Vane. And let's talk about the fact that her last name is Vane. It's spelled V-A-N-E, but it sounds like Vane. I he loved it. And he falls in love with this actress, and the actress falls in love with him because, I mean, he's Dorian Gray, who wouldn't? And then what happens is he falls in love with her because she's a great actress. However, after she falls in love with him, she can't act anymore because she says that everything on the stage is fake. And that's true. Like, actors know that when you act, nothing is real. You know, it's truthful, but it's not real. And since she has experienced real love, she can't fake it anymore. And that causes Dorian to break up with her. However, when he breaks up with her, and she's devastated, she's like, please don't do that, I need you, etc., etc. And he's like, I don't care, because he really undermines her now that she's not the actress he fell in love with. So he goes home, and he sees that now his picture sneers, and he's terrified by it. So he decides to go back and apologize and be like, damn, I messed up. However, when he comes back for Sybil, she has committed suicide. So what Dorian does, and we love a delusional guy, is he convinces himself that all of that gave Sybil the opportunity to bring life to a real tragedy. So if we think about the Shakespearean tragedies and what love would cause and all of that, I think Romeo and Juliet and whatnot, he tries to see that what he has done to Sybil has made of her life the art she always believed in, and she ceased to believe because of him. So, after Sybil's death, Dorian falls into a life of sin, and he makes all the wrong choices. And even though all that he's doing is wrong and that his reputation is pretty damaged, he's still highly admired in society because of his looks and his youth. So he kind of gets away with a lot of things he does because it's Dorian Gray. And there's even a line in the text that talks about like the way he's perceived, and someone says, I mean, it seems like he's doing wrong things, but look at that face. How can someone who looks so good not be good? So this relationship between aesthetics and behavior is really, really interesting. Sybil, her story just kind of fades for a while. And there is this quote in the book as well that talks about how Sybil never really lived, so she couldn't really die. Because she was just a figment of everything Dorian wanted her to be. Like the actress and everything that it looked as if she was. And that's what Dorian fell in love with. So that's why when she became like a real person, Dorian didn't love her any longer. After that, Basil comes to Dorian's house to console him because his reputation is ruined, and there was the whole Sybil situation happen. And then Dorian shows Sybil the portrait and what has happened to the portrait. And Sybil begs him to repent and like to flee this life of sin and whatnot. But Dorian says that it's way too late, and he kills Basil. At that moment, we have James, who is Sybil's brother, and who had appeared a while ago. He had talked to his sister and said like, hey, you shouldn't be with Dorian, he's not like good for you, it's not gonna turn out well. And now he's back and he's looking for revenge. So he's coming after Dorian. And Dorian is filled with guilt and fear. And there is even an idea that maybe James is more important if he's understood as a personification of Dorian's conscience than as a character by himself, because as a character he's pretty weak. He comes after Dorian. Dorian flees to this countryside place, and he sees James through a window in a white pale face. And we'll talk about that in a minute when we talk about symbols. And then James gets killed, he's shot by some people who were hunting by accident. And that kind of frees Dorian from the person coming after him. After that, Dorian decides to amend his life. Like, he's gonna make everything right, all the wrongs, he's gonna rewrite them. However, he can't put himself through the pain of confessing to his crimes. So he never does that. And then the picture starts to show the hypocrisy in his guilt. Of like, he is guilty, but he's not willing to pay for his crimes. So that shows in the picture as well. So in the end, furious at the portrait of himself, he takes the knife he used to kill Basil and he sticks it to the portrait. Eventually, his servants come looking for him and they can't find him. So they go into the room where the portrait is, and all that they find is the picture of a handsome young man, and on the floor, an old, ugly corpse with a knife on him. Okay, so that's the plot of Dorian Gray. So now let's look into some of the extra things we have to talk about in this story. In a series of epigrams, Oscar Wilde has stated that the purpose of art is to have no purpose. And that is really important because Oscar Wilde wrote in a moment in which it was believed that art was connected to moral purposes, that art had to translate the ideas that the society had. And he went against that. His philosophy was based on something that's usually known as the philosophy of aestheticism, which means that art is sustained by beauty. Art is the research of beauty, if you think of Adorno and all of that jazz in the philosophy area. And that will echo even on Dorian Gray, because he looks for jewels and rare tapestry and all of that in order to escape the sense of his world. So art would be a way not to find reason for the problems of the world or try to find morality in them, but rather a scapegoat for reality. Now let's go back to something that I had previously mentioned about the importance of the color white in this novel. The color white is usually connected to innocence and purity, and that may be the way it first appears in the story, because the color white first appeared on Dorian Gray connected to his boyhood, and that's what is so captivating about him for Lord Henry. So we already have kind of some foreshadowing of what's to come, that like his youth and beauty is what will help him survive. But also the creation of this innocence in him that will be destroyed by everything that happens and all of the choices he makes. Next, when Basil sees the portrait, when it's ruined because of Dorian's sins, right before Dorian kills Basil, he quotes from the Bible: "Though your sins be as scarlet, yet I will make them white as snow." Next, when he sees James stalking him, he says that his face was white pale. So is white really a symbol for innocence? Because now that's what's haunting Dorian. And lastly, Dorian longs for his rose-white boyhood when he has already witnessed everything that he has gone through. But now he's too stained, so he can't have it back. Well, I'm just gonna finish something with my makeup because I'm gonna do something that's kind of inspired by Marsha when she lip sync against Anitra on that iconic lip sync of Boss Bitch. But also because later this month we'll be talking a little about La Llorona. So I'll be right back. So I am gonna end this video with a quote. "Don't talk like that about anyone you love, Dorian. Love is a more wonderful thing than art. They are both simply forms of imitation," remarked Lord Henry. Remember, life is a sim.